Hey there, this is Matt with State of Flux here with a review for Beetlejuice. That is the second Beetlejuice, unfortunately titled Beetlejuice Beetlejuice. This is a film that I think works in spite of itself in a lot of ways and gets a soft pass because I do think it's the best film that Tim Burton has made since Sweeney Todd. I don't think since Sweeney Todd Tim Burton's made a single good movie with the sole exception of maybe Frankenweenie from 2012, but that was more of just a reworking of something he'd already done before in the 80s, just elongated. And the biggest criticism I have of that admittedly solid movie is it feels like a short film stretched way too thin into a feature. This film is a sequel to Beetlejuice that kind of is insanely perplexing. It's something that I just have so many notes for. I have notes upon notes. My notes have notes. And yet, I came away from the film being entertained and thinking that this movie moves. It has life to it. There's vibrancy. And this is something that a lot of Tim Burton's films haven't. So this is a movie that I'm giving a soft pass to in spite of its lesser qualities. The biggest issue of Beetlejuice Beetlejuice is that it has like four main storylines all vying for attention to be the main plot of the film, and yet none of them are really being, like, none of these four children, these four storylines are being fed enough for any one of them to become the main storyline, and a couple of them are genuinely superfluous to ultimately what happens in this film. Like, why is Monica Bellucci in this movie outside of she's dating Tim Burton and that's a must-have in a Tim Burton movie? This weird toxic use of his paramour, his lovers, is kind of a concern and should be addressed. But that's a separate storyline. Now, the Monica Bellucci stuff is all really good, and it actually feeds into one of the things that I like best about this movie is the use of practical effects. This film does truly act like a sister film to that original Beetlejuice in that there's very little obvious digital work in this film. All the stuff is done seemingly practically, and it's done to expert level. It is great looking across the board. And when it comes time for Oscars season, and this did in fact make the short list for the Oscars for makeup, I hope it gets there because the makeup and effect work in this film is extraordinary. But it's put to use in these weird plots that don't really go anywhere. Willem Dafoe is another one that, like, his plot in the film also seems completely superfluous, yet it is some of the best stuff in the movie. And I like the whole notion of this hard-boiled detective who wasn't actually a hard-boiled detective. He was just an actor who played a hard-boiled detective who died on set and is living the dream of fulfilling this role that he never got to conclude in the underworld, while tracking down this also A-plot murder woman played by Bellucci, who has loose ties and may have been an ex of Beetlejuice, which is weird that this is the first time I'm bringing his character into the plot of this film because he really isn't in that much of it, but Michael Keaton's a rock star, and whenever he shows up in full force and steals the show. But not from everybody. There are others in this movie that also vie for attention at stealing the show. And I feel Catherine O'Hara is one of them. Now, her character from movie 1 to movie 2, like, her character seems generally to be an afterthought in the first movie. She has the famous Day-O scene that completely steals that movie. But other than that, she doesn't really have a huge impact on the first movie. Her character gets a big boost this time around. That being said, I felt like they used her as like an ace up their sleeve. Like, oh my gosh, we have this amazing performer that was so underused in the first one. Let's build her up in the second one. She doesn't necessarily seem like maybe the same character. She's way kookier and odder in this film than she was in that. But hey, maybe that happens with age. That being said, I don't know why she's in this movie other than to have Catherine O'Hara in your movie. And you know what? If you're going to have somebody in your movie and that somebody is Catherine O'Hara, give her as much screen time as you can. So I get what they did. And it's perplexing and I don't know why it's here, but here we are and there it was. Alongside that, her being brought in is as Lydia Deetz's mom, obviously, because their dad died. Now, their dad, the actor who played him, turned out to be a kind of sick individual and a pedophile, so he is rapidly written out of this film. That happens in the first 5 minutes, so that's not too much of a spoiler. However, his presence lingers throughout the film in a really interesting and neat way that's both a shock to the actor and amusing to the audience. However, I wouldn't have recreated the Deo scene at his funeral sung by a chorus of children. That seems misguided when you're writing out your pedophile. That said, let's move into Lydia Deetz, who's kind of my biggest issue in the film. I don't buy that that's the same character from 1 to 2. There's a stagnancy there that I just don't buy into. She has the same hairstyle from the first movie, and I find it really hard to believe that a character or any individual is going to keep the exact same hairstyle for 35 years. And when I said this to one of my friends the other day, they pointed out that I also have the same hairstyle and dress the exact same as I did in high school, so maybe it's not that weird. But the difference is, by the end of Beetlejuice, she does change her hairstyle, she changes her clothes, she changes her outlook on life. And it's all entirely walked back here, and having her trying to commune with spirits for a talk show just doesn't seem like the story trajectory Lydia Deetz ever would have gone on. So that was something that I thought was kind of strange, and I didn't love so much. Furthermore, she has a child, and I have a friend who's very vehement that Lydia Deetz never would have children. She just wouldn't. I don't buy that. I don't agree with my friend necessarily in full, but I can see where she's coming from, because I also am having a problem with how she's characterized in this, in that I don't believe that her character would do something that this movie has her do. So I just thought I'd throw that out there. Her character has a child in this, and that child doesn't believe that her mom can communicate with spirits. And she has a very strange relationship with her mom, and that plays out in a pretty intriguing and interesting way as the film progresses. And Jenna Ortega, along with Catherine O'Hara, seems to be another ace up the sleeve and put to great use. Now, that is to say, all these storylines that I've just brought up, the killer woman who's like sucking the life out of people, that's an ex of Beetlejuice, the hard-boiled detective trying to hunt her down, Beetlejuice himself, who's needed by Lydia Deetz for a secret mission late in the last act, and Jenna Ortega trying to estrange herself from her mother, who is trying to reconnect there, while also kind of falling for this young boy who also thinks that everything in this town is kind of horseshit. And then Catherine O'Hara's doing whatever it is she's doing in the movie, ultimately leading to snakes, which I'll let you discover for yourself. All of these things kind of could have worked for their own movie and made a good movie, and it's not lost on me that there are dozens of scripts over the year for Beetlejuice 2 that never got made, and I feel like they just kind of smushed several of them together. But what's the most frustrating about that is if you strip out the Monica Bellucci and Willem Dafoe storyline and the Catherine O'Hara storyline, you're left with two kind of interesting storylines, which is Lydia Deetz is still able to communicate with the spirits, has an estranged daughter who life events force them kind of back together out of estrangement. The daughter doesn't believe she can communicate with ghosts, while the daughter falls in love with one. And Beetlejuice is needed to help redeem the daughter, is a really interesting and compelling movie if it had been given room to breathe. And this film doesn't really allow for that. So we could have had a genuinely great sequel to Beetlejuice. It's there. It's literally written in there. But there's all this noise to distract you from the quality story that's there that they don't ever focus on, and it's like, what's going on? Now, all of this review sounds like it's a bad movie, and it's not. It's not a particularly great one, but it is a good time, and not in the same way where I said Madam Web isn't, it's not a good movie, it's a good time, because that's a movie you kind of laugh at, not with. This is a good time in the sense that it's a movie designed for pure entertainment, and I was purely entertained all the way through. I like the movie more than I ought to with all these problems that I have. But as I say, I think I give it a soft pass because this is clearly the best output Burton has put onto the cinema landscape since 2007, and I'm just cheering for a win at this point, and this is the win I get. It's a movie filled with good and interesting performances, good and interesting characters, even if I think the utilization of some of these characters is maybe misguided based on what my headcanon said with these characters. Still, within the film context itself, they all work, and it's visually dazzling and entertaining to boot. So, I like it, I think. That's my thoughts on Beetlejuice 2. What did you think of Beetlejuice 2? It's nowhere near as good as the first one, but it was a pretty entertaining film that I would be curious to watch it in tandem with the first one, like watch 1 and then 2, because I didn't do that. I haven't seen the first one in about 5 years at this point. Does it hold up when they stand next to each other a little bit better, or does that hurt this film? I'm curious. Let me know what you think of this film in the comment area down below. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Follow me on TikTok, and peace.